Dr. Pallavi Bhadwaj and Chetan B. Manjunath, sir.
Yes, I'm here, ma'am.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Nutan Kanwar from Himachal Pradesh National Law University, Shimla. So today I will chair this session. I hope it will be very enlightening session. So now I request Dr. Pallavi Bhardwaj to please start your presentation, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Pallavi Bhardwaj from Himachal Pradesh University, Shimla. I'm Assistant Professor English. And with the kind permission of yours, I would like to present my paper.
Proceed, ma'am.
Quote, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Unquote. African continent has been witnessed as an unparalleled augmentation of African intellect in the fictional works of Ngugi Thiong'o, Volshanka, Kofi Avenur, Chinua Achebe, Cyprian Equincy, Gabriel Okara, Flora Wapa, Buchi Amachita, Ivy Arma, Ben Okri, and many more, who have been voicing the protest of populace in opposition to the forces of colonialism on one hand and vindicating the African legacy and ethnicity on the other. My paper is on Ben Okri, Voice of the Blacks. In fact, African literature is a literature of protest against mortification, contravention of traditions, customs, cultural patterns, and rhythms of life in an endeavor to show a way out from the current quagmire. Almost as a rule, the African literature is a literature of protest, agony, and deferred hope of self-introspection and self-assertion. The intrinsic attribute of the existing African literature in current times has been a surge of radical literature, the insurgent spirit of the people. The writers envision a symbolic overhaul of the system, sharing a faith in future, a better future that can be ushered in through struggle and reform by trying to connect the works of imagination with the struggles for social change and social justice. As told, this African literature is predominantly a protest literature which voices against the encroachment of the Britishers on the well-knit and cohort tribal societies, which were lamenting the loss of an integrated multiracial society. African fiction has emerged as a kind of reaction to Eurocentric version of the African portrayed in terms of savage, inhabiting a dark continent. In fact, Africa is no longer a gloomy phenomenon, a dark continent of dense forests, cannibals, and wildlife. African society has not been able to fully recover from the traumatic effects of its confrontation with European imperialism. The demand for freedom, social justice, and equality runs through the literature, focalizing on the contemporary reality in the nation state. And Nigerian writers, Nigerian novelists in African continent were the first to note that independence did not bring any fundamental change in the lives of the people. As far as the present paper is concerned, it is an attempt to understand and project the contemporary socio-political reality in Ben Okri's literary pieces. Before looking into the contemporary African reality, it is essential to have a peep in her past, and especially in the context of her historical encounter with the European settlers and colonizers. The need is to look into the concepts such as the spread of British Empire and the birth of erstwhile colonies across the world. Emerging from colonialism, African countries are in direct confrontation with their own history and cultural past, as has been illustrated in dozens of literary works. On one of the crucial areas of conflict in contemporary African novel is indeed the questioning of one's own values and traditions against a complex set of historical experiences. The Black man loses his sense of self and identity because he can only see himself through the eyes of the white man. Fano argues that for the native, the term man itself begins to mean white man because he does not see himself as a man at all. In terms of culture, the native extends his accepted notion to believe that the only values those matter are of the white man. For the white man, the native is always the negative, the very opposite of what he and his culture stand for. And as far as the psychological concepts are concerned, he's again a Black man, which these people don't consider as a just situation. Now, talking about Ben Okri, he raises his voice against all the injustices and the discrimination faced against these Blacks. Ben Okri is a prolific Nigerian writer who has received considerable critical acclaim in the literary world. There are numerous critical works on his novels as well as other literary works. In addition to his essays, research articles, and interviews, there are numerous works which have won him the Booker Prize. It is not easy to critique Okri's oeuvre. The paradox lies in the fact that, on one hand, Okri's writing provides richness and complexities that is both challenging and exhilarating for the critic. On the other hand, this Nigerian-born author, he's voicing the inimitable ability to capture in simple yet profound phrases what oft was thought but never so well expressed. Tempt one to sidestep, critique, and invoke and facilitate Okri's own voice as self-evident. Okri's works has been an on. He was as far as his works are concerned, his famished road is both post-colonial and modern in orientation. His early fiction explores the political violence he witnessed during the civil war in Nigeria. His first two novels, Flowers and Shadows and The Landscape Within, are set in Nigeria and feature as central characters two young men struggling to make sense of the disintegration and chaos, both in family and country. The trilogy, The Famished Road, The Songs of Enchantment, and Infinite Riches. It offers a very different vision of Africa, presented in what appears to be a magical real style, but which may be better termed as a spirit real conception of narrative reality, a state in which the allegorical, the material, and the allegorical spirit realm are in constant interaction. The Landscape Within can be classified as one of the marvels Okri has written. Okri has been an honorary vice president of the English Centre for International Pen and a member of the board of Royal National Theatre. But these works did not make him the only one who can talk about injustice. His every particular work stems him to be a variant of injustice, seen everywhere. So he has to say that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Don't be hard on yourself. Be perfectly okay with being who you are. Fully embrace yourself, flaws and all. And as far as the Black excellence is concerned, the Black excellence is the celebration of success in the Black community. However, its purpose goes far beyond simply highlighting individual achievement. Black excellence is a mindset backed by actions that display leadership through perseverance. The true purpose of these actions is to advance the Black community, and so does Okri through his literary oeuvre. Be it The Famished Road, Songs of Enchantment, Shrine and Stars of Night Curfew. He actually raised the issues. And the current research explores the socio-political reality and vision in Ben Okri's work and to find out the root causes of oppression in Nigeria. The major concern is the life of powerless, hungry, and displaced people, and the role of post-colonial elite to redress their dilemma. So one can say that this man, this writer, being one of the prolific African writers, is a self-confessed Nigerian Londoner. The two categories that mark him as a man and a writer. To fully understand the development within his narrative and poetic discourse, one must appreciate the complexities of this hyphenated identity. The cultural translation that Okri performs in his works is what Bhabap defines as the transnational, that explores the link between how he recreates an image of home within the alien landscape of London, and how this process activates an exploration and a reconceptualization of diverse cultural material, which included Western Africa resource base and a European literary tradition. It evidences how Okri emerges from the shadows of mimicry to transform his own personal relationship with the colonial past to recreate a new literary space. This transformation is within the sign of Black difference, which questions the notion of Black essentialism and return to the Black organic community. Through this cultural translation, the writer achieves a bridging of Africa with the multicultural site of London and in a larger context to the world. Ben Okri draws special attention to the power of dreaming and narrative in helping people realize their dreams and create a new world of equality, justice, understanding, and peace. In this sense, to conclude, his literary pieces focus on the fundamental human issues, exploring the hope and possibilities of people of different ethnic and cultural backgrounds to lead meaningful life together in a post-colonial world where suffering, inequality, injustice, exploration, exploitation, and warfare are harsh realities. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. It was really very nice presentation by Dr. Pallavi Bhardwaj. It's very impressive. And now I request the rest of the participant, if you are having any query or doubt, you can ask it from Dr. Pallavi. Is there any doubt or any query from any of the participant? I think there is no doubt. Thank you so much, Dr. Pallavi. It was really very nice presentation. So now we are having the second presenter. This is Chetan B. Manjunath, who is the Assistant Professor of English in Government First Grade College, Bagadi, and if I'm not pronouncing wrong, from Karnataka. Is he there? Chetan is there? Chetan sir is there? I think he's not here. The next participant is D. Ram Arvind. He's a PhD research scholar. Yeah, he's here. So now you can start your presentation. You're not audible. Chetan, you are not audible.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay, now you're audible. You can start your presentation.
Okay. I'm the first person, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Ma'am,
Okay.
Just a minute. Sorry. Yeah. Narrating metafiction, reading Tiber Fisher's The Thought Gang. This is the topic I have chosen. Yeah. Metafiction, the sense William H. Gass coined the term in the year 1970. The term metafiction, which cites to the novel's self-reflective tendency, has to be described by various terms mentioned in Mark Curie's book entitled Metafictions in the year 1995. Among these terms, we find self-conscious, introspective, narcissistic, or auto-representative novels. Patricia Waugh, in her book entitled Metafiction, The Theory and Practice of Self-Conscious Fiction, it was published in 1984, provides a comprehensive definitions of metafictions by describing it as, I quote, fictional writing which self-consciously and systematically draws attention to its status as the artifacts in order to pass the questions about the relationship between fiction and reality. Unquote. She further adds that metafictional works are those which, I quote, which explores the theory of writing fiction through the practice of writing fiction. I unquote. This double definition of metafictions, which other theorists also employs, make it difficult to know whether it applies to contemporary metafiction, which other theorists also employs, make it difficult to know whether it applies to contemporary metafictions or all works containing self-reflexivity. As we have seen above, while some critics claim that metafiction makes the end of the novel as genre, it advocates the argues that on opposite, it signals the novel's rebirth. Patricia Waugh remarks from dying of the novel. So, the definitions with the work mentioned here, the metafictional work, they have taken the theory of metafiction, and I'm applying this theory to the Tiber Fisher novel the thought gang, which was the title Fisher is basically from the England. He's a contemporary writer, and he has written the novels like Under the Frog and Thought Gang and Good to Be God, like this novels. His novels also has been nominated for Booker Prize Award. And this Thought Gang, the title of the Tiber Fisher's second novel. Eddie Coffin is the main narrator or protagonist novel. He is a Cambridge University professor. He was working as a Cambridge University professor, and his collected works include unpublished, that is, deliveries of the lectures on Plato and Socrates in the philosophy novels. And the opening scene of the novel, he escapes from his past life. In the note, three symbolic cerebral. He escapes in the pornographic apartments when police came there and harassed him, and suddenly he tells that, however, the police asked the occupation of the Eddie Coffins, and he tells occupation, a philosopher. The police they talk by the philosopher opinion. And after that, this novel moves like this, and there, Eddie Coffin becomes the robber. He starts robbing the banks with the help of the U-bird. And Eddie Coffin, now a successful robber, he was robbing wearing the mask of nation. And this novel is not only deals with these things. The purposefulness of the novel, how we can say or argue that this is a metafictional novel, that every pages novelist purposefully uses the word, the starts with the word Z. So every pages he uses the word with the Z, and this Z words he has taken from all holy books, from the Bible, Quran, and all those Z words from all this. In a book entitled, this makes the novel more metafictional because involvement of the readers becomes the major aim. An author is not interpreting the meaning, but is giving to the readers to emerge as a creator of the meaning. You have to readers to consider yourself the readers of this, and we can say with these things I can argue that this is in a book entitled Narcissistic Narrative, the Metafictional Paradox by Linda Hutchinson argues that the reader task becomes increasingly difficult and demanding as he sorts out the various narrative threads. The universe thus create him must then acknowledge as a fictional of his own making. Thus, the role of the readers in the metafictional text is no longer a passive receiver, but rather than an active participant in the writing process. The novel gives us more information about the nature of the fiction by being very specific about the roles of the readers in the text. The author uses many narrative strategies that makes the postmodernism as well as the literary modernism. Is the unclear relationship between the author and the reader. There is an increasing demand from the author for the participations of its reader. For instance, in the metafictional text like the Thought Gang, main character Eddie Coffin requires to take an active role in the creation of the text. In reality, the novel is not only about the book, the bank robbery, but of a narration and the language used in the novel. Fisher purposefully uses a word which starts with the letter Z. It may be Zam, Zoom, Meme, Zymatics, and Zoropedia, like these words it purposefully uses in every pages of the novel. Even though the character Eddie Coffin, through the Eddie Coffin, author tells us why he used the word. I quote, Z, the last letter of our alphabet, the seventh of the first alphabet, Hebrew and the Phoenicians, the sixth of Greek. When the Romans conquered Greece, they were forced to borrow Z. It stands like the brand on the forehead of the Roman culture. Skew water to the Greeks. I unquote. The author borrows few words specifically which starts with the Z letter from the Greek, German, French, Quran, and other holy books, and even he dedicated few pages for vocabulary. Description, this type of novels question us and encourages us to consider what we value novelistic form. So, metafiction is an act of writing a novel which author self-consciously uses this technique for projecting reality from ordinary language. It is difficult to project the reality. Using metafiction will encourage readers for better understanding of reality. I'm concluding with this remark. Tyler Fisher, as a contemporary British writer, he is writing a novel like The Thought Gang, is giving a model for metafiction by writing fiction like this. He is constructing postmodern fiction of his own. Fisher's way of language and ridiculing the Western philosophy, satirical criticism of the traditional novel forum will be a great contribution in the area of narratology and postmodern fiction. Postmodern fiction is far diverse in style to be a genre, nor is it a historical label like Victorian fiction. To say in 1960s to represent the age of the postmodern period would be to misrepresent. Many contemporary writers whose work cannot be related to postmodernism, it would be preferred to think of postmodern fiction as a particular aesthetic or a set of principles or value systems. Reading Albert Fisher's Thought Gang, I come across these three elements: language, narrative technique, and the characters. These three elements may have emerged from the writer's supporting of postmodern movement or present condition of life. Peter Berry, in the beginning theory, says, I quote, modernist lament fragmentation, postmodernist celebrated, I unquote. In every page of the Thought Gang supports the argument made by Peter Berry, subversive cosmopolitan philosophy, absurdity features we can see in the works of Tiger Fisher. In the sense that the notion of the language as a self-constrained system relates closely to the Euclid idea of disappearance of real. Patricia Waugh writes, although metafiction is just one form of postmodernism. I unquote. With these things, I complete my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chetan sir. It was really very nice presentation. And now I request rest of the participant, if you are having any query, you can ask from Chetan sir. If you are having any, if you want to, ask something, I think no. Thank you so much, Chetan sir, for such a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Now we are having the next presenter, D. Ram Arvind from Saraswati Narayan College. Is he there? D. Ram Arvind? D. Ram Arvind. I think he's not there. Okay. Now the next presenter is Hans Dean from CDLU Sirsa. Hans Dean, are you there? Can you hear me? Hans Dean, are you there? I think he's not there. Now, next one is Junaid.
Hi,
Junaid.
am I audible? Am I audible?
Yeah, you are perfectly audible.
Yeah.
Now you can start with your presentation.
Okay. Thank you so much giving this opportunity, and good afternoon, everyone. Respected ma'am and all. So my topic is portrayal of city and culture in Nizam skills play, an analytical study. So as we know, city has paramount importance in literature and an important role in various genres of English literature. Novelists and dramatists also pointed out from wide analysis of urban landscape and urban culture in different ways. City with its vibrance has explored different themes, motifs, and characters in English literature, particularly in Indian English drama. City has played a vital role in reshaping culture, lifestyle, and urban space. So I'm going to make a modest attempt to analyze the city and language as a culture in city where it used as a vehicle of communication in select place such as Don't Call It a Suicide of Skill, who made a healthy relationship between the city and Indian theater, and how he has narrated the city in different way and how the city became integral part in literature. Even though he is popular in poetry, he contributed a significant plays which offer a wide range of urban experience and exploration of urban realities in the city. So this study will intensively focus on analysis of play through the urban realities, urban culture, and cultural practices, city problems, and dramatic devices, dramatic discourse. So this will study will look into the about the relationship of modern Indian theatre to the city and urbanity as a way of life. And the study will explore the skill understanding of city life through the subtle variations of themes. So as we know, the city has as a space occupies from representational point of view an important position in different genres of creative literature. So Hashang Merchant, for instance, in his poem, is described a city as a city, a urinal, writes, the city is a bladder, it processes the infection in the body politic and purges it of porks and sin. Only in going through it do you come out of even the rain here smells of rain. Among few Indians who attempt to write plays in English during post-independence period was Nizam Eskil. Nizam Eskil, as we know, he is more renowned as a poet than as a playwright. His dramatic composition nurtured a new creative inspiration for theatre aspirants who later exploited the nuances of the several Indian varieties of English on the stage. He has 5 length plays to his credit, all of which were composed in English. And Nizam's skill, educational professional experience are deeply rooted in the city. In 1945, he graduated with a first-class honor degree in English from the Wilson College. In 1946, on his return from England, he joined the theatre group formed by Sultan Padmashi in 1999. His last published play, Don't Call It Suicide, was performed at the British Council on Mumbai. Nizam Eskil did not carry any baggage of traditional Indian theatre when he set out to write plays. He belonged to the Benel Israel community. So, and his biographical accounts also confirm the metropolitan entrenchment of his skills, consciousness, and his sense of belonging to the city of Mumbai, as he himself admitted in many of his poems. The city or urban living thus provides much fodder for Eskil's literary output, the city being the center of cosmopolitanism. Shirley Shue observed in an essay, the essay, its name is As in Generally Accepted, India for Eskil translates for into Mumbai. I was born here and belong. And it is pulsing realities of the city that is bodied forth in the writing. The stark and grim realities dominate the urban scene, as reflected in many of his Mumbai poems, become inseparable from his mindscape, whether they are scripts of the city or the slums. The Indian city space, Mumbai particular, offers its natural habitat, allowing it to flower out of in language of daily life for larger section of the Indian population. Eskil English is not the English of the Indian Academy of post-British era. He is the English, the common man in India, of the railway clerk or the geography professor whose English have been forced upon them and were desperate to express the spirit of India in a language not their own. Habib Tanvir had once marked that the true pattern of Indian culture in all facets can be witnessed in the countryside. In this intellectual climate, SKL's drama, exclusively concerned with the city, was challenging to the mindset shared by Habib Tanvir, a mindset that the theatre in the village allowed it to be considered indigenously Indian, not the theatre in and of the city and of the city. To represent the city and urban life, SKL chose a familiar stage setting culled from Western realistic tradition, the drawing room of the family home, a space in domestic domain that may be accused of being a Western import, an intruder into the Indian domestic space, particularly when it's made a center in which the conflict of drama is played out. In all his play, rooms figure prominently as actions, whatever action there is, and conversation take place mainly within the confines of drawing rooms. And don't call it as a suicide, it's a last play. It's set in middle class drawing room. The use of drawing room as a common stage setting in most of his plays allows the skill explore the city and urban life. Ismail's skill has undoubtedly been a true harbinger of new attitude towards the drawing room. Eskill's drama exploited this cultural import as a confirmation of the changing nature of a Indian urban specialty under the impact of rapid urbanization of neighborhoods. Through the manipulative dramatic masterstroke, Eskill uses the drawing room culled from the Western models of realistic theatre of Shaw, Ibsen, or Eliot to represent a new India, an India that was rapidly being urbanized with an urbanization of consciousness. So the play written in is a two-act play. That's divided into scenes. First act containing 5 scenes, and the second having 3 scenes. The central focus of the play is the suicide of a young boy, 14 years old, before the action of the play begins. 14 years hence, his father, Mr. Nanda, has still not been able to cope with his loss and continues to investigate into the possible reasons behind his suicide. In the process, he ends up sharing his grief with a family friend, Miss Sate. Mrs. Nanda is highly opposed to the repeated harping on the past and dissuades her husband from taking up the discussion. However, as he delves deeper into the past and his guilt at not being able to understand his son's abilities and his own burden of expectations begin to haunt him. Mrs. Sada's advice, instead of providing him solace, drives him towards suicide. The case of suicide returned to haunt the Nanda family when Mr. Nanda gulps down a whole set of pills, much to the horror of his wife. The city background comes back again and again in the play. Mrs. Nanda's derogatory references to his daughter-in-law, who belongs to a small town far away from the city. As of course, we told our eldest son that we would arrange a marriage for him, not here, in a different place, a very small town. It becomes evident that because of his son's failure to achieve professional and material success, an eligible city girl could not be found for him, and hence the discussion. Eskill addresses the urban space through his dramatic creation in terms of both geography and culture, represented through the plot, background, the stage props, all the appropriate semiotic markers that may conjure up the speciality of Spiti. Geographically, all the plays summarized above are set in the city, as it's become clear through the dialogues or settings. They may not be named and specified, but are semiotically represented. Further, it is urban space that energizes Eskill plots, as it's quite clear from cursory reading of his plays. The city may be set in the specialty of Eskill drama through the drawing room. The culture of the city too informs the ethos of Eskill's characters. Additionally, the stage props that Eskill employs in the reading room will be explored as a semiotic marks of urbanity. The critic further observed the drawing room in Ezekiel's play do not mark a step away from ordinary reality, but a step closer to the ordinary reality. First of all, the drawing room is an ordinary space, not one of the idealized spaces of earlier Indian English plays. Secondly, the drawing room is a space in which English, the language of the place, can circulate naturally and ordinarily. And thirdly, the drawing room is a space that is connected to an other lived and ordinary spaces. The city, as we know, is built by complex science of that asserts its presence, producing the urban effect by an architectural effect in an unity of composition and style. So the drawing room, an architecturally built space in very castle of domesticity, is a liminal space where the public and the private meet. This also reflects the effects of urban lived space of modernity, which are practiced in everyday life at a given point of time. The drawing room or living room itself may be regarded as a part of facade of the displaying outside within the domestic space, which is a part of the spatial semiotic urban life and lifestyle. So lifestyle thus is a part of culture of consumerism and commodity. The drawing room thus is a space both sign of urban living and lifestyle that is distinct by virtue of its covenant signs. Every lifestyle product, as I mentioned above, thus becomes a sign in spatial semiotics of urban living and all adding up this culture of the drawing room. In order to understand how about the fashion and lifestyle consumer goods may be interrupted as a signifier of urban spatiality, as a close reading of Barthes' methodology in his elaboration upon language and his speech, an element of semiology may help. On the one hand, the city dweller is free from burden of inherited ritual traditions of community bonding, and on the other hand, this freedom comes at a cost of threatening isolation. The critic Thierry Pacot observes, as a place where individual is able to come into his or own, the city also creates a feeling of malaise. Finding one's own bearing in the modern city's intricate networks and various architects, real or imaginary, is no real matter. A city dweller can feel ill at ease in the city's fragmented time and space, just as he or she can feel bereft of the sense of community. As revisiting, don't call it as a suicide, a tragedy, as a representation of urban speciality brings to the forefront of number of essential properties that are unique to the urbanism as a way of life. The city being at the center of world of the play, it's become important in the study to locate the features of city life as explored by the expert in urban sociology, and which may theoretically link it to our understanding of a skill dramatic with the city. However, these demands and conditions of this bonds of the specialty of the city may not be met with all individuals in the city. And superficiality, anonymity, and transitory nature of the social relations are key points of understanding of urbanism as a way of ascribed to the city life. So, concluding that, the study, the preach have been demonstrating how the urbanity and the urban consciousness penetrate into theatre culture and modern India, first through the colonial recreation of European models of drama, and then through the Indian version of city-based drama in English language. At the same time, remain strongly entrenched in the spatial zone. So, the city has represented the in Skill's place produces its own forms of space through the deployment of architecture, culture, and language. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Junaid. It was a very good presentation. So now I request again, this is another call for Hans Ding. Is he there in the session? Hans Ding. Hans Ding, can you hear me? And D. Ram Orvind. D. Ram Orvind. Okay, Hans has joined, I think, this session. Hans, can you hear me? Can you start your presentation? Hans Ding. from CDLU Sirsa. I think there is some network issue. He's joining and leaving this session. And D. Ram Orvind. I don't think so. These two participants are there in the session. So I request, I would like to ask the admin, should we wait for these participants till 2 o'clock? I think we'll wait for 5 minutes for these participants. I think there is some network issue on their side. That's why he's trying to join this session, Hansdin. So I'll wait for some time. Is there any participant whose presentation is due in this session? Actually, I have been provided with the list of 5 participants with me. And I have been left with 2 participants, Ram Orvind and Hansdin.
Ma'am, let's wind up the session, ma'am.
I think so, huh? We should. So thank you so much. It was very enlightening session. Dr. Pallavi has thrown light on the voice of Black in a very well manner. And on the other hand, Chetan Manjunath has narrated the concept of metafiction by focusing on the tribal fiscal thought gang. And at last, Junaid has analyzed in a very well manner the city and culture by referring to Lyceum Ashkill play, and has turned our imagination into a reality by portraying in such a very well manner. So thank you so much. It was actually very enlightening session. So thanks a lot to all the participants who has joined this session, and all the viewers or other students or other members who have joined this session. Thank you so much.